Oh my. Hello, everybody. This is Professor Hill, and this is Friday the 23rd. Oh my gosh. So I got a couple of quick updates for our class. Introduction to Ethics 2306. Okay, couple of things. Number one, I finished grading all the stuff up till now, including the stuff that was due last night. And listen, first of all, there are some great responses and some great answers. This was the group study question, and I think people got it. And listen, I just wanted to say hats off to the people that are reading the chapters, working on this, putting in the time. You guys are giving long, good, complex, great answers. Now, look, that being said, it's a couple of people who aren't doing as well because they haven't responded yet. So for that, you get, the goose egg. And there are some people who I understand. People get busy, they get tied up, and are phoning it in. But I'm just saying, guys, we're so close to being done. We're very close next week, Wednesday. So don't throw in the towel now. Is all I'm saying. You're very close to getting done. So, uh, that being said, let me tell you how this story ended. I promised you I would tell you today how this story ended. As you recall from my last video, it came over to me. I was on the student affairs side of the house. I said, look, I don't want this thing. It doesn't sound like a student judicial thing, a violation of the code of student conduct. This sounds like it's an academic matter. So back to you guys. And the dean who was handling it, who brought it to me, said, all right, look, I'm just going to give it back to the professor and just let him decide. If it's a classroom matter, academic matter, I'm just going to put it in his hands. He learned a lesson that day. Because what happened was the professor says, all right, it's my call. Here's what I'm going to do. The student is in the group. I put him in there. He did a lousy job, but he did his own work, and I'm going to let them present. So they had them all present together as part of the group. The other guys in the group didn't like that, but they all got through it. And so then he says to the other guys of the group that had done all the work and everything, he's like, look, y'all are fine. You tried your best. It's not your fault this guy blew off meeting with y'all. It's not your fault he got his wallet out and pulled out a bunch of money. Y'all refused it in the end, so that's all that matters. So nothing to them. We'll come back to that. The second thing is, to the guy who had blown off meeting, but then had done his own work and showed up, he said, yeah, look, you presented, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to fail you on this assignment because you didn't do what you were supposed to do as a good member of the group. You didn't come to meetings. You weren't in communication with them. You blew it. But it turns out he didn't fail him for the class. He just failed him for that one assignment. And it was enough for him to still pass the class, which he did. Now, I got to tell you, there were some people who were unhappy with that, including the dean, who thought, well, if I kick it back over to the professor, he'll fail the student, and that'll be the end of it. Yeah. So he failed the assignment, but not the class. Still passes the class. Which, in the end, when he told me, I said, look, I can live with that decision because, look, they didn't take the money. He did his own work. He presented his own work. Sure, he was lousy, a member of the team, but I live with it. And to his credit, the dean, kept his word. He said, look, I'm going to respect the decision of the professor. Told him it was his call. He made the call. Although he was surprised. He thought that the professor was going to fail the student for the class, and he didn't. Like I said, next time the dean decided he was going to make his own decisions and not trust the professors. That's the problem. Don't trust the professors. Anyway, turns out that's how that one ended. And well, look, the comments, especially the really good ones, wrestled with the issues, talked about what was involved, decided whether it was good or bad, and there were people all over the place on that. But again, here was the thing. It was about the approach. It was about the consequentialism or the non-consequentialism. That was the important part. That was thing like the video I posted yesterday was talking about that thing from the point of view of the students and trying to weigh and balances the outcomes and the consequences, or trying to say, no, look, there's just a principle, a rule that applies. And again, I want to make this clear. That's what I want you to apply to your own thinking. And so some students have said, well, I think it was wrong, and here's why I think it was wrong, and it's because of this rule, and that's non-consequentialist thinking. And I'm like, perfect. They're getting it. Or they're saying, I think it was wrong, and here's why, because of these outcomes. And I was looking at I was weighing and balancing what might happen to make a decision, or now for the students, but also now that you see the end of it, you have to think to yourself, sometimes the consequences that we think are driving our decision about good and bad, right and wrong. The basis upon which we're making the decision, the basis upon which we're thinking it's right or wrong, sometimes those consequences turn out to not be the case. Because again, you got to remember, that's one of the real tricky parts about consequentialism. You're trying to predict the future because potential consequences may or may not happen. Now, sometimes it's pretty clear, like with the Jenny Lake case. That was a pretty stark choice. It was a terrible choice, but it was pretty clear what the outcomes were going to be. Sometimes it's not that clear cut. Sometimes we don't know what the consequences are going to be. Sometimes they don't unfold for years. And on that point, I'll tell you a quick story, which was I once had a student came in and said, look, I've been doing some research in the library, and I think I've discovered, looking at a thesis that was written for the college years ago, I think I discovered plagiarism. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? I said, oh, no, look, this book that's been sitting in the library for years, it's an old thesis. I compared it with this other one that was written before it. And sure enough, this person, when they submitted their thesis, had copied whole pages and pages and pages of stuff. I'm like, oh my. And this was interesting because that person had turned in the thesis, it had been approved, and they had graduated years before. Ran that over to the academic dean and said, look, this is a problem, but it's an unusual case because this person's long gone. This has been sitting, in the library for years. Just no one had noticed the plagiarism till now. Well, the academic dean was he's like, look, that's a requirement for the degree. So yeah, but if it's already been given, can you walk back a degree? Can you revoke a degree once it's been given? Which is, by the way, extraordinarily rare in higher education. But it does happen, and especially if you've got, incontrovertible proof, and it's a requirement for the degree. You can kind of see you get boxed in pretty fast by the logic of that. Anyway, the academic dean called the student in, and the student just immediately came clean and said, oh my God, look, you got me. I'm sorry. I was under a lot of time pressure. I apologize. It was years ago. I wouldn't do anything like that now. And the dean said, well, I got to talk to other folks about what we're going to do. And, but I'll let you know. Well, checks with everybody else. They come back and decide, you know what? We should, and I thought this was a really kind of a good way to split the difference. That what they said was, look, we're going to revoke your degree, but we're going to give you time then to refile the thesis. And if you go do what you're supposed to do, we'll let you essentially fix or correct the thesis. But if you want to do it over and have met all the requirements for your degree, then you can graduate. And so that was the plan, right? Was to say, no, we're pulling back the degree, but we're going to give you an opportunity to amend it or fix it. And by the way, there was also an interesting question, which was, how long do you give the student to fix it? And what's the status during that process? They said, look, we'll give the student a year, and during that year, the degree will be revoked, but then at the end of the year, turns into stuff, we'll be all set. Well, turns out the dean brings the student in again to explain all this and to essentially offer this both punishment and opportunity. And the student says, look, I appreciate all that you're trying to do for me, but it doesn't matter. And the dean's like, no, I think it matters a lot. Student says, no, it doesn't, because since we last talked, I just have had to come clean, because I had to tell my superior officers, because I'm in the Air Force and the government paid for my degree before, and I'm now looking at a dishonorable discharge and having to pay back all the money that immediately that they sank into my education. And while I appreciate your offer to let me redo it, that's the least of my worries right now, because my life has fallen apart. And I was like, wow, that was, you talk about consequences for an action. That's huge. And of course, years before, late at night, just on a jam time-wise, somebody figures, well, I'll just slide in a few pages, it'll work. And it did for years. But it was like a ticking time bomb sitting on that shelf. And blew up with huge consequences. By the way, all of that happened. Anyway, it's a terrible story. And a reminder that this is about consequentialist thinking. If you think to yourself, oh my God, I'm not going to cheat on my thesis or in a class because these potential devastating consequences are out there, and that's what would make it wrong, or the reason why I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do the right thing by doing it because I'm afraid of these consequences. That's kind of consequentialist thinking. On the other side of the house, you got this non-consequentialist thinking who's saying, look, there are rules, there's principles, one of which is don't cheat. Don't lie, steal, or cheat, tolerate those that do. This is a rule. And even if I got away with it, I'd still know. And so that's the reason why the right thing to do is to do it right, do my work, not cheat. That's non-consequential thinking. So there's a big difference between these two. And again, I've been calling them approaches, but we're talking about moral theories, the foundation on which all this rests. Well, look, this is all leading up to the assignment we have due Sunday night, coming up, the 25th. This is Sunday night at midnight. You guys are going to need to get that one going. Here we go. Yeah. And it's 25th Sunday. This is the student's cartoon. And we're going to do the same thing. I'll tell you the problem. I need you to make a decision before you know how it turns out. And again, it's a fascinating and bizarre case. Again, a true story. But what's so interesting about it is here that the student did it. The student drew the cartoon, but didn't deliver it. Somebody else does. So this raises all these questions about intent and about, the thinking and the purpose behind it. Is the drawing itself a threat? Is it not a threat if it's not delivered? But it was delivered, but by somebody else? There's a lot to try to sort your way through on this one. And again, on this one, I promise you, you will not believe what finally really happened. At least until I tell you on Monday, after your assignment's due Sunday night. So again, until Monday, the 26th, do some more reading. Make sure you're clear about consequentialism, non-consequentialism, and incorporate that into your answers. Some of you guys are doing that, and that's what you need to be doing. If you're getting marked down, it's either going to be because you're giving incomplete answers. You're saying, well, it's right or wrong. And sometimes even offering a reason why not. But if you're not getting into consequentialism and non-consequentialism, if you're not incorporating the theories from 4, 5, and 6, the block of reading from the text, that's where people are losing points. So again, there's some great examples of how to do that just in our last case, the group study problem. people went out of their way to do a really nice job on that. So there's models available for you right there on the discussion page. Look through those to get a good idea of what you need to be doing to get full marks and full points on the student's cartoon, which is due Sunday night. Anyway, in the meantime, again, like I said, most everybody's doing really well. And so I just want to encourage you, keep it up. And don't forget, good or bad, it all comes to an end on Wednesday. And we'll talk some more about the final exam, which is coming up fast. And but for now, for today, for Friday the 23rd, I'm signing off. Again, keep up the good work, guys. You're this close. Okay, bye-bye.